Welcome. Today we're going to discuss the technique Desperate Falcons, its execution, some of the things that can go wrong during its execution, things you can do to compensate or fix those issues, and a little bit about its history. So, like some of our upper belt techniques, this technique was also in a form, in this case long form 3, and we're going to talk about that as we go through the video. So let's start out with the attack. The ideal attack is a double wrist grab from the front, also known as an applied minor with both hands. So the idea here is that we want to start getting the upper hand. So typically when we talk about that, we can either do that physically or conceptually. So the idea here is they have us in a grab. I now want to create the grab so that we have them in a grab, getting the upper hand. So the way we're going to do that is by minimizing how much movement we make with the left hand and trying to move our right hand to the left. So if I do it towards the camera, the idea is to do this, not to try to move both hands, and we're going to talk about why. So anytime that I create movement, it's going to start causing telegraphs, which might make him let go, or it might make him try to do something else, like holding on really tight. So the idea is to try to minimize what I'm moving so he doesn't have time to react or potentially let go. Now, keep in mind, if I was to move my right hand and he let go, this is where we have techniques that deal with that. If I do the left hand and he lets go, we have techniques that deal with that. But the idea here is that we're going to keep his arms trapped. Now, the reason we're moving the right hand to the left is because if you notice, on both of those instances he freed his hands, we want to make sure that we control their major, not their minor. So we're going to be moving to pin the right hand. And again, this is a thumb lock. We're trying to compress their thumb against the back of their wrist or their hand by using the back of our hands. So think of this like a grab or a vice, but with the back of our hands. So the idea here is to pin and then start to create the pull. So the next thing that can go wrong here is you waste time arguing about whether you should step forward or back. And this is where long 3 comes in. In long 3, we step forward. In the ideal phase, we step back. The answer is yes. You can do either one. It all depends on your environment and your opponent. If my opponent is pulling me when he grabs, I can't step back. I have to go with him. If I have a closed environment, I can't step back. I have to step forward. Remember, we do things because we want to or we have to. So this is where you get to choose which one you want to do. But for the ideal phase, we have an open environment and we step back because we're trying to maximize opposing forces. The idea is, just like some of our techniques, I want to pull him so I can hit him. But we're doing the double version of that by pulling him and then being able to hit him. So the next thing that can go wrong here, if you notice, Kenpo is a lever-based system. So once I get him to bend, I then start giving away this leverage by lifting him back up. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that once we hit, we continue to keep them down throughout the rest of the technique. So let's talk about something that can go wrong with the punches. When we're hitting, you end up hitting with the back of the hand instead of the knuckles. So you got to make sure you turn your knuckles so that they're in line with what you're hitting. And then the uppercut. When we're doing the uppercut, because we do this with double steps, you end up hitting with no base. You're hitting with the foot in the air and settling for the elbow. The idea is to have that base. I still want to keep my foot on the ground, getting everything in line so I can support this because we're using opposing forces on a vertical now, as opposed to horizontally like we did at the beginning, and then continuing to do the elbow to turn them. So the idea of the technique is I want to start turning their head and then turning their body. Now, the next thing we're going to do is hammer the kidney. The problem that can go wrong here is I try to go from point of origin and not anchor my elbow. So if you notice, my elbow is in line with his body, so I can't really hit with this hammer fist. The better way to do that would be to keep my elbow in line with my body, not his, so that I can drop. Now keep in mind, if he was really low because I bent him down, I don't want to hit with an unanchored elbow, so that's what our knees are for. We can drop and settle to make sure that our elbow is below our wrist. So one more time, we turn him. From here, I want to rotate and drop. So the next thing that can go wrong here is the end of the technique. There's an ideal phase where we buckle and then knee, but keep in mind we have the formulation equation. I can do the knee and then the buckle. I don't have to do the buckle then the knee. So depending on where he is in our situation, depends on which one we're going to do. I could easily go knee and then buckle, or we could do an insert, do the knee, and then do the buckle with the knee. But let's talk about the actual buckle itself. This goes into gauging. Depending on where I am, I might have to cross behind to do the buckle. I might just have to do a slide up to do the buckle. I may not even need to do that. I could just do the buckle. So let's talk about two things that can go wrong with the buckle. Number one, I go in a circle. I let my left foot circle, which starts exposing my back and changing my alignment and puts me in the minimal depth zone so he can take advantage of it instead of using a line. I want to make sure this is all done in a line. The second thing that can go wrong is I start to give up my leverage. I start to bend, so I can buckle, and now my opponent could potentially land on top of me because I've given up my leverage. So remember, the idea is that I want to keep my back straight, take away their leverage, but keep ours. So let's switch sides so you can see this again while we do a quick walkthrough. Now, keep in mind, we didn't mention this, but we usually mention it in our videos. We have long versions of the technique, middle versions, and short versions. This part, I'm going to talk about which ones you could do for this video. So remember, try to minimize the amount of movement you make with your left hand. Only move the right hand if possible. Get the vice-like maneuver using the back of the hands. Either step forward or back, ideally back so you can get the frictional pull, and then deliver the two punches. This could be where your short version of the technique could end. You can just cover out and leave, but we're going to continue. Again, I'm going to control them using opposing forces to pull them down as I come up with the uppercut. Hit with the elbow, making sure you have a base. Turn and do our hammer fist. This could be where the middle version of the technique is, or I can just leave and cover out. But we're going to continue to the end. Now again, depending on where he is, you can do the buckle knee, you can do the knee buckle, or you can do the knee buckle knee. Keeping your back straight, making sure we go in a straight line and not a circle when we do the buckle. And then again, bounce, keeping contact unit, and you're out. So we'll execute it a little bit faster, but slow enough where you guys can see all the maneuvers. Up. We hope this video helps you. Thank you very much.